Farzana, please introduce yourself. What is your position in the school?
Okay, so my name's Farzana Ahmed and I'm a Year 1 teacher as well as being head of Year 1 at Elmhurst Primary School. And I've been teaching the mastery approach for 2 years now.
Great, thank you. So how did you come across the 10 frames? Because not every school is using the 10 frames. And what was your first reaction when you saw them, maybe either in a school or in a training session?
We first came across after the head teacher went to visit Shanghai, and he came back and spoke to us about the mastery approach. Our school then went on to become a maths hub, and we were introduced to the 10 frames through a school inset. Honestly, my first reaction was, how comes we've never come across them before?
Yeah.
Straight away I thought instantly these would be amazing in the classroom, and they would really help children from high ability right to those that struggle with number and counting and the one-to-one correspondence of number.
Great. So that was about 2 years ago, right?
Yes, that's right.
And so once you've kind of seen the approach, seen the use of 10 frames, what was your first steps? How did you introduce 10 frames to your class?
So we introduced it through basic counting. It was mainly I think the first time I remember doing the first lesson, it was in a whole class situation. I think I put out the 10 frame on the carpet using masking tape, and then I got children standing there, we put objects in there. So it was introduced in a very fun and practical way, using concrete objects. And then we moved on to using them at the tables, and then children became used to them and began using them independently when they were working and problem solving.
Okay, great. What are the effects that you've seen since using the 10 frames? Because you've been Year 1 teacher for a while now, is that right?
Yes, that's right, since
so
we've been doing the mastery approach.
Right,
yes.
so, and before the mastery approach, were you a Year 1 teacher?
Yes, that's right.
So you've seen both ends, I suppose, when you were not using the 10 frames
Yes.
for numbers, and also when since you've started to use the 10 frames as well, and it's been 2 years, as you
Yes.
said. So hopefully you've got enough time to kind of digest and
Yes.
think about the effects it's had. Can you share with us some of the effects that you've seen in the children?
I think the biggest thing that I've noticed is children's foundation of numbers has definitely become a lot stronger. I think prior to teaching the mastery approach, we taught numbers up to 10, and then we'd quickly move on to 20 and 30, and we'd assume the children had a good solid foundation of numbers up to 10. But it was only since the introduction of the 10 frame we really got to grasp children's conceptual understanding of numbers within 10, being able to spot numbers within numbers. And we only realised that since using the 10 frame. I've got children now who say to me, they look at a number and they can say, oh, I can spot, there's a 2 and a 4 within the 6, I can spot 6. If I had 4 more, I'd have 10. And prior to using 10 frames, it was only through, it was taking a lot longer, and it was only through questioning you'd be able to extract answers like that. Whereas children are already visualizing these independently, without the teacher having a lot of input in there. There's a lot of independence involved. The children are connecting numbers together, they're spotting patterns, and the main thing I think is the reasoning that's come from using the 10 frame is amazing. I've got Year 1 children who are coming up with different ways of telling me how they can make 8.
Brilliant. And we saw that today's lesson as well, and I was talking to a few of the children, and they can see a lot of things. They were saying things like if 5 and 5 is 10, then 5 and 4 must be 1 less, and so forth, which is really good to see. So how do you see the follow through? So from using the concrete, because this is using the CPA approach, right? So from using the concrete, are they able to give you number facts quite quickly without seeing the visuals as much? Are you seeing that by the end of the year? Can they do something like that?
Yes, definitely. I think using the 10 frames gives them a very strong mental image, a visual image of what I guess it's called sabotizing. They've got a very good grasp of what numbers look like without having to count them, especially when they're in the 10 frame format. And even if they're not, they can manipulate the images or manipulate numbers to sort of move the numbers around to make them numbers that make it easier for them to work with. Also using the 10 frames, using the part-whole diagram alongside it has given them a really solid understanding of addition and subtraction, and they can do inverse a lot more easily. Whereas I think prior to teaching this approach, it was a lot more difficult to teach that.
Yes. A lot of teachers say that.
Yes,
right.
it's made that it's just it's just natural.
Yeah, great.
So
we've heard lots of good things.
Yes.
I'm sure there have been some challenges as well. What do you think has been the biggest challenge when introducing the 10 frames?
I think being a year 1 teacher, often the start of the year is always a huge challenge. It's the transition from children coming from reception into year 1, where children are used to working in small groups with the adult support. So teaching maths as a whole class and having resources available to the children is just making sure that the children know how to use them, they know how to manipulate the resources to be able to solve problems. And then the other thing is obviously when the numbers get larger later on in year 1, there's a lot more resources on the table. So it's children, and getting it's an organisation, children being able to use the resources they need to be able to solve the problem.
Right.
But so we soon get through that.
Okay.
Yes.
How important do you think it is for reception EYFS settings also to use the 10 frames? Do you think it's a must, or is it something that's...
After using 10 frames, I think it's absolutely fundamental that children have access to, in a play-based learning environment, using, egg cups, ice trays, ice cube trays, practically using in the role play areas when they're doing printing, things like that. There's so many opportunities for them to be able to use the 10 frame, not just necessarily during a maths lesson in the early years.
Even as a container, right?
Exactly. And actually the children love sorting anyway, and if there was a few 10 frames around, I'm sure they'll be doing that without without the teacher intervening.
Great. Thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome.
You.